Hello everyone, Ember here and welcome back to a new video. In this one I'm going to be taking a look at the very best cards for GLC from the set 151. So basically I'll be ranking each type and the new trainers that are releasing in the set. This ranking is of course a personal opinion, but the main point of the video is to of course showcase the best new cards for each type. So without further ado, let's get going. So unfortunately metal types automatically have to take last place. A bit unfortunate, but there is no metal types in this set. RIP. But in 11th place, we have lightning types, which have some interesting new additions. This new Raichu is honestly pretty decent. It says when one of your Pokemon is knocked out, then you can move a lightning energy from that Pokemon to Raichu, which honestly isn't the worst effect in the world, especially since Thunder does 180 damage, which is honestly pretty solid. But it does do 50 to itself, and I think there's a better Raichu in the form of Circle Circuit and Expanded. So, that's also going to be a theme, by the way, in this video, that there's a lot of Pokemon that just have better alternatives in the Expanded format. But if you're getting started with GLC and you're just starting out, or you want to play on a more budget-friendly level, then, these will be decent alternatives. Same goes for this Electrode. I believe there is an Electrode that allows you to, accelerate a lightning energy from your discard pile to itself or something, or move around energy, which is pretty good in GLC. But if you want to base your deck around the Pachirisu, for example, that does more damage for each tool card you have in play, then maybe this Boom Boom Chain Electrode could be a neat addition to that deck. This Magneton, in all honesty, I'm not sure how the ban list affects the Magneton that is banned in Expanded, the one that allows you to KO itself and then search your deck for 3 supporters. I'm not sure if that one's actually banned or not. But if it's not, then this can still be a decent alternative, allowing you to retrieve up to 2 item cards from discard pile, put them into your hand. Maybe some kind of lightning pseudo control deck, since there is a Magen Zone that allows you to play 2 supporters at once. So honestly, could be a pretty interesting Magneton and something worth bearing in mind. In 10th spot though, we sadly have 2 new additions that I think were worth talking about. That's going to be Arcanine and Moltres. This Arcanine isn't the worst, to be honest. It can accelerate energy from the discard pile to itself while also doing damage, which is pretty nice in GLC. Also, Dynamite Fang does 240 damage, which is an awful lot of damage to do in GLC. It's even going to KO stuff like the Wailord, I believe, that has 220 HP, although actually... Wait, no, it won't, sorry. Wailord has the ability that says it takes 3 less damage from attacks. Okay, that's frustrating, but... There will be other instances where there's big, bulky Pokemon, like Stage 2s, for example, where Dynamite Fang will be getting a one-hit KO. You can obviously power this up with the Charizard that doubles Fire Energy as well from Pokemon... the Pokemon Go set, actually. That's the one I'm looking for. So yeah, this Arcanine isn't terrible, to be honest. And then the Moltres, in all honesty, I think the Moltres, the Top Burner Moltres, the mill one in Expanded is a bit better. There's also the one from Brilliant Stars that does 90 damage if it has any damage counters, just a very efficient attacker. But if you are building around a fire type spread deck in particular, and you really want this kind of 120 snipe, then this Moltres could be a nice fit for that sort of deck. Coming in at 9th place though is we have some interesting dark types. This Muck is very control focused, basically increasing the attack cost and retreat cost of a defending Pokemon by 1 colorless more, which is honestly super annoying in GLC because you never want to have to expend more resources than necessary to do anything, such as switching or accelerating energy. So Muck could be very annoying. This Weezing isn't terrible either. I think this is one of the better Dark-type Weezings that you can play in GLC as well, which is nice. The ability, even though it only has a 50% chance to work, can potentially take a KO when it gets knocked out itself, which is honestly pretty decent because if your opponent just doesn't have another attacker ready to go, like there's oftentimes in GLC where your opponent's only able to get one attacker going at a time without expending too many resources, then Explode Together could be very potent. And then Spinning Gas does 50 damage and then 10 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Could soften some targets up, but honestly you're not doing that much damage with this card. But you do have to remember there is a Coughing with Ascension, so you can get this going pretty easily. Still, definitely not the worst Dark-type Weezing that we've seen. There's also this new Zubat, which I thought was kind of worth mentioning just because the ability is pretty neat. It's not anything too crazy, but just bearing in mind if you really want to play a new Zubat, or you're focusing more on a control aspect and you want to lean into, I don't know, a Crobat, for example. So yeah, Zubat's here. Then in 8th place, we have some interesting fighting types. Unfortunately, there's I think just a lot of really good fighting type options already in GLC for these Pokemon, but still I thought these were worth talking about. The Onyx with Thumperlanche, maybe you're playing like a high retreat cost deck. This could be a pretty solid option in the late game if you can get it so that you only have just Pokemon in your deck. Could be a really neat attacker. There's also the Hitmonchan, which honestly isn't terrible. It does get outclassed a bit though by the Hitmonchan in the late Sun and Moon era. I think it's Team Up or something with the finishing combo, which is like a spread deck. But if you're not playing that Hitmonchan or that combo and you just want a good single price fighting type basic, then this Hitmonchan is honestly a really solid option. So counterattack and excited punch, pretty decent attacks and abilities. Then we also see the Machamp, which unfortunately does also get outclassed by the Machamp from Lost Origin. But still, you know, if you're building around the Guts theme, there's the Hariyama with Guts as well. There's Last Chance Potion. You know, there's like definitely a lot of different things that you can build around and support with this archetype. There's like the Fighting Fury Belt as well, and the Focus, not Fighting Fury Belt, the Focus Sash, that's what I'm thinking of. You can also like use Martial Arts Dojo to increase its damage. So I definitely like this Machamp. I think it could be pretty fun in GLC. The Sand Slash also isn't terrible, doing 80 damage. Then if your opponent's active is already damaged, attacks 100 more. So if you have like actually been building around a spread deck, fighting type spread deck, then maybe Sand Slash is also a really solid option with Spike Rend. So something worth considering. But in 7th place, we have some Psychic types. We have Gengar, Clefable, and Mr. Mime. This Gengar, I think, is really interesting. Poltergeist can be very, very strong in GLC because players are naturally going to be playing a lot of different trainer cards, and they might get into a position where they don't want to play out all their resources because you only have one-offs in GLC, of course. So Poltergeist could be very disruptive at the right time. Holodive, also softening up a bench Pokemon, could be pretty decent. This Clefable, though, I think is the main standout for Psychic types and why they had to be at least 7th place on this list. More Moon does 50 damage, but if you take a KO with it, then you get extra prize. It's honestly just really, really solid as an attack. Just manipulating prices in GLC doesn't happen very often at all, so being able to do it for Psychic types should be a very solid buff. This Mr. Mime isn't so great, but I do like the ability Mimic Barrier, so you can potentially wall out all damage, but you know, it is a bit niche and specific, and you will have to accelerate a lot of energy potentially, but still I thought it would be worth mentioning against certain matchups. Then coming into 6th place is we have the Water types. We've got this like Sea King, which is pretty decent when paired up with the Dugong and Finian, but that might be too awkward for GLC. Still a really decent stage 1 water type attacker if you're just getting started and you're building around Baxcalibur. This Omnistar could be a really solid water type control option with the ability Primordial Tentacles, which is essentially just Snorlax Stall. But also Aqua Split is doing decent damage and also softening up targets again. You know, there's not a lot of bench barrier in GLC, so definitely something worth bearing in mind if you're looking to build around that. Then this Articuno is once again a kind of a spread type attacker. There is definitely better Articunos in Expanded. There is one in the XY era set. I think it's Roaring Skies that does like 120 damage potentially, and then allows you to take an extra prize card, which is a very, very strong Articuno. But still, if you can't afford that one, or you know, you just want to play around a water type spread deck, then maybe this Articuno isn't a terrible option for you. Also, this Cloyster can be really annoying. It only does 80 damage for 2 energy, which seems pretty weak, but it does also say that this Pokemon takes 80 less damage from attacks. So if you combine that with a Rigid Band from this set as well, then you'll be taking 110 less damage. You can, of course, use stuff like Pot Helmet to take even less. You could use that other helmet that says you take less damage if you don't have an ability. So there's like plenty of options to make this Cloyster just really annoying and tanky. And of course, you can give it like Muscle Dumbbells and Expanded as well. So a very annoying Cloyster to deal with, and overall a pretty solid set rather, I should say, for water types. In 5th place here, we have some new supporters. We've got Erica's Invitation, which could be really solid. It's kind of like a pseudo Gust, and you also get to look at your opponent's hand, which is, it's decent, to be honest. It's definitely better if you know that your opponent already has a Pokemon in there it's worth gusting, and of course that's going to be pretty niche, so I'm not sure how strong Erica's Invitation really is, but I do think it could be a really solid card. Builds transfers, just like a straight up consistency boost to decks that want to play a lot of Pokemon and get them into their hand. Daisy's Help is decent because it just allows you to look at the price cards, which is always nice. And then Giovanni's Charisma, allowing you to accelerate energy and disrupt energy. Think about fighting types and fire types who don't really have a whole ton of ways of accelerating energy in GLC. Definitely think Giovanni's Charisma could do a bit of help for that. So yeah, nice to see the supporters. They're like not as good as maybe the Paldea Evolved selection, but still pretty decent. Then in fourth place, we have some Colourless type options. We've got a new Aerodactyl with free retreat, which is always nice to see. Now, Devolution Ray could be pretty good in kind of like a Colourless spread deck, really, because like you shrink your opponent's Pokemon down and then you de-evolve them with Devolution Ray. You know, you can basically just get a 1-hit KO and stuff like a Torterra, which is really nice. And because everything is still worth 1 prize in GLC, it doesn't really matter. So something nice and worth bearing in mind once again. However, there is, of course, the Aerodactyl from Team Up, which is just a lot better than this Aerodactyl. But again, if you can't afford that one or it's too awkward to get a hold of, then this Aerodactyl is honestly a really nice substitute and definitely a really strong card. Then this Dodrio is just a nice bit of draw power while also being a decent backup attacker, so definitely one of the better stage ones from the set overall. Then we have this new Spearow, which is super interesting with the ability Evolutionary Advantage, so we can potentially evolve into Fearow going second, or the Fearow from the Sun and Moon, which allows you to shrink your opponent's hand size down to 3 cards. So definitely something worth bearing in mind if you're looking to boost your consistency or disruption. In third place, we have some items and some tools, which honestly aren't terrible. The Big Balloon, I think, is the weakest out of all of these, but in all honesty, it's not that terrible either. The Energy Seal could be nice in fighting decks, because they do need energy acceleration. Rigid Band is honestly really solid in these like stage 1 control decks. Snatch Arm could be pretty solid, also can combo with Erica, so you could just see what your opponent has, but yeah, just some nice solid options for GLC. Then second place, I do have a new Stadium Cycling Road, just a consistency buff, and you know, more consistency is always appreciated in some lists. And then in number 1 spot is we have the Grass types, which I think are the biggest winners from the set by a long way. There's a new Beedrill, which admittedly has stiff competition from other Beedrills, but this new Pinsir is really, really solid. Definitely a really solid option for Rillaboom decks overall. We've also got this new Vileplume, which is kind of outclassed by the Rillaboom, but it does also come with the added bonus. You can use Gloom's ability as well. We also have Venomoth, so we have loads and loads of stage 1 control grass types, which is super, super annoying. Confusion and restricting your opponent from being able to play item cards. Very, very annoying to deal with. And then Parasect with Spread Filaments can potentially set up a bunch of stage 2s. So I definitely think grass types are the big winners from this set. So yeah, thanks for watching. Some overall thoughts. I'm not going to read these out. You can if you wish. But yeah, basically, decent set for GLC, to be honest. But yeah, honestly, this has been Ember Power. And yeah, thank you for watching.